Hot Pursuit is the 18th episode of the 7th season of Frasier. This is directed by Sheldon Epps, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. Usually with Frasier I'll go through things chronologically, but with this one I'm going to go through the two parts of the narrative, but I'll talk about the setup first of all. And in general, it's fine. I didn't think it was that funny. I didn't think it was that interesting. I did love Frasier's facial hair, which I'll talk about in a moment. It's okay. It's not a bad episode at all. Starts off with Niles and Daphne alone in the apartment, very briefly. And then Frasier comes in, and he has facial hair. He's been to Boston. No mention of Cheers, but we do get a mention, of course, of Lilith and Frederick, which is why he went. And there are comments in this about his facial hair. But what's interesting is that if you watched Cheers, and I imagine most Frasier viewers at the time would have watched Cheers, you'd be quite used to seeing him with facial hair, a lot more facial hair, not entirely, and certainly not from the beginning, but it was quite common for Frasier to have facial hair at the time. So while it is a little strange for the TV show Frasier, the character himself has quite often sported facial hair, and I think he looked great. I think he really, really suits it. And Donny and Martin then come in. They'd been out together, and then Ross comes over and reminds Frasier that they're supposed to go to this cocktail party for work, and that's part of the narrative, and I'll talk about what happens there in a moment. The other part is that Donny had asked Martin for help because he needs to get a photograph of something so that he can help win a case for his client. So he asks Martin if Martin will do a stakeout and get this photograph, and Niles tells Martin there's no way he can do it. He's not going to do it. It's not safe. And Martin tells Niles it's okay. And then, of course, once Niles leaves, Martin reassures Donny that he will do it. And he's getting a nice payday for it as well. And that's the other part of the episode. So I'll talk about that part first. We have some really sweet moments and some nice comedy as well. And then I'll talk about Ross and Frasier. So Martin does go on this stakeout, and Niles arrives at the vehicle and gives him some clam chowder in a thermos. And well, it turns out it was actually clam chowder. When the boys were growing up, Martin's wife, their mother, would give him clam chowder in a thermos for his stakeouts. It turns out it was actually coffee and whiskey, and they would just say clam chowder, so they didn't hear their father constantly being handed whiskey, which Martin's reaction when he realised it was actually clam chowder was very, very funny. And Niles confesses that he is worried about Martin, and that's why he didn't want to do the stakeout. And I think it was an eye-opening moment for Martin. I don't think it's the first time Martin has realised his boy's worried about him as a cop, but I think maybe it's something that he wasn't thinking about in the moment. And of course his father was a cop, so he knows what that's like. And we have a nice little heart-to-heart between them, and then Niles makes Martin admit he doesn't really want to take this photograph because maybe the affair isn't happening, or they're just about to reconcile. And then things just get a little bit chaotic. And I liked how it was resolved. I thought everything wrapped up nicely. I thought it was good fun, quite funny, but with some really, really moving moments, heartwarming moments as well. Also, I've never had clam chowder. I don't even know if it's a thing we can get in the UK from somewhere that isn't like a specialised shop. I don't know if I like the sound of it or not. Decent part of the episode. The rest of the episode focuses on this cocktail party. We're just in the hotel room, though. Frasier hasn't got a hotel room, so he's going to have to stay with Ross. But both of them are confident that they won't even need the hotel room because they're going to hook up with somebody else at the party, and they come back later on, and it hasn't gone according to plan. And then they're talking together, and Frasier realises that his longest relationship with a woman is Ross, non-romantic relationship, obviously excluding family members, which I thought was quite an eye-opening moment. And that being said, could we not then say his longest relationship with a woman non-romantic would have been Carla Tortelli? Technically speaking, I don't know if we could class that as a friendship, but I feel like Frasier very much became part of the fold very quickly. So I argue technically his longest relationship with a female was with Carla, which was 8 out of the 11 seasons of Cheers. He came into Cheers in season 3. So technically it's not Ross, but obviously close working relationship, yes, of course it's Ross. And then there's something in the air, and it's not the first time they've kind of tried to momentarily push Ross and Frasier together. I don't think they've ever lent into it to the point where viewers are led to believe it's a kind of will they won't they situation. As is the case with Niles, we always have this will Niles say anything to Daphne, which I won't say anything else about, but I don't ever think it was a will they won't they with Frasier and Ross, but occasionally they'll put them in a scenario where there's just a little glimmer of maybe something's about to happen. Frasier has his face fuzz. He does look great. Roz has put on a blonde wig, which makes sense when you watch the episode. And they both realise that it's Frasier but not Frasier, and Roz but not Roz. And it seems like maybe something's about to happen. And then there's a knock at the door, and it's Kenny, who also doesn't have a room, so he needs to stay there as well. And I think the timing there was absolutely perfect, and it was good fun. And the atmosphere very quickly changes, and they both realise that it wouldn't have been a good idea had they gone through with anything, which I think is safe to say. I think that friendship is so beautiful, it would not be worth risking just to see if there's something romantic there. If one of them felt like they were in love with the other person, maybe, but I certainly never get that impression from Roz and Frasier. I think they love each other, but certainly as friends. And it was fine, not a bad part of the episode. So there's nothing about it that didn't work. We had some really beautiful moments. We had some comedy. Frasier looked brilliant, and he always does, but I particularly like Frasier with the facial hair. I have to say, this Frasier facial hair is more appealing to me than the Cheers Frasier facial hair, but he always looks wonderful. And in general, there is nothing about Hot Pursuit that doesn't work. Not a personal favourite. It maybe doesn't have the funniest moments. I don't think there was any one moment where I laughed out loud, which does often happen with Frasier. So it's not the funniest, but it's still a delight, and ultimately, I'm sure it's an episode that I'll always enjoy.